I don't really know how to feel about that. I can't believe we've just lost at home to Crystal Palace. I mean, it's yet another twist in this quite unbelievable race for the Premier League top four. I mean, nearly 6 days ago I was sitting here and saying to you guys that we were in pole position for a Champions League place. We're still in a good position. I mean, we win all remaining games. We'll go level on points with Chelsea, even though they would have had the same amount of points. Our goal difference is superior, and that would see us into the top four, and that is if Chelsea win all their remaining games, as do we. But, you know, if we had won today and won our remaining 4 Premier League games, not only would we have guaranteed a Champions League position for next season, but we would have finished 3rd. And it just now feels like that all of the hard work that we have been doing, all it takes is one result to completely change the seesaw, and then you're tipped the other way now. And, you know, even though we showed a little bit of fight, and, you know, we got that goal back, you know, when we were 3-1 down to make it 3-2, and we just weren't able to get that equaliser. To lose at home and to lose to Crystal Palace, and no disrespect to Crystal Palace, they're a great side. They can cause problems against the big teams, and they have done, and they've showed, you know, this is another example of what Palace can do. But to concede 3 goals at home, to concede 3 goals to Crystal Palace is not great, and it just kind of still reinstates the point that even though Unai Emery, and, you know, I wasn't getting carried away myself, Unai Emery has done an absolutely unbelievable job to get us into this position at this stage of the season. If you look back to where we were at this stage of the season last season, you know, he has done absolutely brilliantly, but it shows that defensively we are still all over the place. I mean, it is, frankly, it's not acceptable in any shape or any form to concede 3 goals at home. So, yeah, I'm not really sure how I feel about that right now. Welcome back to Analysing Arsenal. These are my thoughts and feelings to the game in the Premier League at the Emirates as Arsenal hosted Crystal Palace on Easter Sunday. And I'm going to be doing an Easter video, guys. So first and foremost, happy Easter for everybody here at DJ Bagpuss. We'll talk about that in the next episode of Bagpuss Uncut. But, you know, I didn't do an Analysing Arsenal on Thursday. I was at the pub watching the Napoli-Arsenal game, and I'm going to talk about that at the end of the video. But, you know, if we focus solely on events that have taken place here, I just am quite shocked, really. I mean, you know, Crystal Palace have beaten Manchester City this season. In the past, they've beaten Chelsea, Manchester United, Tottenham. You know, we have lost to Crystal Palace before. And, you know, earlier this season, we drew at Selhurst Park in a thrilling 2-2 game, which, you know, on that day in October, we were very, very fortunate to get, you know, the point. But, you know, to not even get 3 here today, when we're on good form, we're absolutely unbelievable at the Emirates. It just, I'm not quite sure, really. I mean, I've seen, you know, a few goals here and there, and they're just basic defensive errors that we made. But we just lack something today. And Palace kind of, you know, all they need is a little bit of an inkling. They just need to have a little bit of a feel of you know, having a game there. You know, if there's something there for Palace, they will go, and they've got the quality with Zaha and Benteke. You know, they've got deadly players going forward that can create chances and can score goals should you A, present an opportunity to give them those goals, and B, if you defensively don't allow yourself to be covered and allow those Crystal Palace players to get into those positions. I mean, you know, yes, we had 73% in possession, but we looked very, very shady defensively. Every time Palace went forward, you just thought that they were going to get a goal, and it kind of come really from, I mean, you know, Christian Benteke scoring, bearing in mind he's not scored for the best part of a year. You know, he's the sort of player that, yes, he's not great at all, in my opinion. I don't think he's a great player. I think he's one of the most, you know, overrated Premier League strikers out there. But he has got the ability that if you give a player like him space and time to cause you a problem from an aerial, you know, threat that he possesses, you know, one simple ball that comes in, Benteke is going to win the header 9 times out of 10 if you're not covering yourself, if you're not defending, you know, properly and assuredly. Benteke, you know, you're playing to his strengths. You're almost giving him the opportunity to get a goal, and, you know, even though he has squandered those opportunities on many occasions, he has got the ability to fire and get a goal and get kind of Crystal Palace motoring and moving, particularly if you give him that amount of space and time in the box, and that's exactly what we did on 17 minutes. You know, at 1-0, And then in that first half, I wasn't worried because I thought to myself that, we have been able to turn games around. If you think back to what we did earlier in the season, where we would be miserable in the first half, we'd be a goal down, we wouldn't be able to generate, any sort of major chances. We're playing quite flat. We weren't really causing the opposition any sort of problems out of any kind. And, there was a run that we went on where we weren't winning at half time. I think it was in like the first 10, 12, 15 Premier League games that we played. I mean, it was an absolutely ridiculous record. And then we'd come out in the second half and it was almost like you were watching a completely different team. And, we were able to save ourselves and cause problems in the second half, show the ability that we clearly have, and then get the 3 points. And I kind of just assumed that it was going to be one of those days. And it started in the best possible way. Mesut Ozil, from a free kick that we have, the free kick is played quickly. Lacazette plays Ozil through, and he, puts it into the back of the net to give, the equaliser just, on the other side of half time. And at 1-1, you're thinking, right, Arsenal, let's step the game up. Let's go into another gear, yet another gear, and get that second, third goal and kill off the game. And we didn't do that. Wilfried Zaha put Palace ahead on 61 minutes, and then James McArthur, with 21 minutes to play, puts Crystal Palace in dreamland as they have got a 3-1 lead to hold on to. And like I said earlier in the video, yes, Aubameyang got us that second goal with 13 minutes to play, and yes, we weren't able to get that third goal and kind of, at least salvage a point, which would be, with all things considered, a point would have been a very, very good result. It's frustrating because, I mean, if you look at the Everton game and now the Crystal Palace game, if we see where we are in the Premier League table. So we're level on points with Chelsea. We've now played the same amount of games. We will have a game in hand on Chelsea. We play tomorrow night against Burnley. We play our game in hand against Wolves away from home on Wednesday night. But had we had beaten Everton last weekend, that would have taken us to 69. Win here today would have taken us to 72. We would be second, and we'd be five points clear of Tottenham, and we would have played the same amount of games as Spurs. So we would have had a 5-point lead over Spurs and a 6-point lead over Chelsea with 4 games to play. That would have probably and ultimately meant that we'd already had secured a Champions League spot at this stage, where now, I mean, the maximum points we can get is 78, and that's if we beat Wolves, if we beat Brighton, if we beat Burnley, and if we beat Huddersfield. And Chelsea will also get 78. And it could even come down to goal difference. I mean, Chelsea have got to play Manchester United the way that Manchester United played earlier today. I only see one winner in that. So, ideally you would like Burnley to do something tomorrow night and then for Manchester United to beat Chelsea. But, it's going to be a very nervy end to the season because it's solely in our hands. But now with goal difference, it was from going into today's game in our hands, and now it's been taken out of our hands. And obviously, yes, we've still got the Europa League to fall back on, but we're potentially probably going to be, if we get past Valencia, we're going to come up against a Chelsea side who, both of us, I mean, I don't think Manchester United are going to get a top 4 spot now. So really, one of us going into that Europa League final, should we get there, one team is going to be in the Champions League and one team is not going to be in the Champions League unless, Tottenham have an absolutely disastrous end to the season, and then, we finish third, Chelsea finish fourth, or Chelsea finish third and we finish fourth. There are so many different avenues, but, we should have done a lot better against Everton. And against Everton last weekend, we were absolutely, all over the place. We were absolutely woeful. And even though we showed a little bit of fight, you can't concede 3 goals away from home and expect to get into the top 3. You've got to do better than that. And, as I said, defensively, that is our problem. We will score goals, and we always score goals, and we'll continue to score goals because we've never ever had an issue with not scoring goals. It's always been, what happens when, people and teams go forward as opposed to when we go forward. When we go forward, we're a joy. But when teams, against us go forward, we just can't seem to defend in the same way that a Liverpool team could defend, a Manchester City team could defend, even a Tottenham team, I have to say. And what is really also quite frustrating is that because of how we played against Napoli on Thursday, I mean, we were second best against Napoli for large parts of that second leg time, in my opinion. And I think as soon as we got that free kick, we controlled the game and we could have scored many, many more. But Napoli still looked, threatening going forward. And although they were ultimately very, very poor, and they were absolutely awful over 2 legs, I still was so proud to see a resilient defensive performance, because we did tighten up defensively away from home in Naples, and going into that Napoli tie, there was so much fear, because we're not great away from home. At the Emirates, we normally 95% of the time this season we get the job done, but it's away from home that's also been our issue. So going into that Napoli game, I felt that even though that there were moments when Napoli could have scored and should have scored, the same could be said for Arsenal, that when we went forward, we could have got at least 2 or 3 more goals, added to the 2 or 3 more goals that we should have got at the Emirates anyway. But to get a clean sheet away from home and to go to a place which many teams have fallen to a defeat was that was a real big statement, really, because it showed that we could be strong and solid away from home. And this is ultimately the most frustrating thing as an Arsenal fan, is that Arsenal can take you, and I've said this before, Arsenal can take you up there, and then in 3 days' time you can go from being up there to down there as an Arsenal fan. There's no consistency. There's no kind of consistent, strong, solid defensive performance. We seem to have one game where we're absolutely amazing, and then another game where we're just absolutely all over the place. And you have to give credit to Crystal Palace, because really ultimately they're safe and secure. Where are Palace at the minute? So they're down. Yeah, they're in 12th. So they're not getting relegated. They've got Premier League football acquired for next season. So essentially this is just a friendly for them, but they've come to the Emirates and they've done a real number and they've done a real job, and you have to give real praise to Roy and Crystal Palace, who, although at times they can be very disappointing, quite solely average, they can cause problems against the big teams, and they've done that yet again. So it's another twist, it's another turn. We go to Wednesday. If we don't now beat Wolves, we're in trouble. If you look at where we were when we beat Watford on Monday night to where we are now, as I said, the seesaw has changed yet again. And, you've seen this season how good Wolves have been against the big teams, and just against generally all the teams in the Premier League. They are such a strong, solid squad. And when you have to go to their own turf, it's even more of a challenge. They should have beaten us at the Emirates. It was only that Mkhitaryan saved us in the late stages that meant that we got a point. So, we've got to win that. That is an absolutely must-win game. I feel like that we'll be able to beat Brighton at the Emirates next weekend. And then we've got, because the schedule has changed. So we've got Leicester at the King Power next Sunday. So that is also a difficult game. Under Brendan Rodgers, Leicester are a strong, side. We've then, as I said, we then go to Brighton at the Emirates. That really should take care of itself. I said that going into today's game, and we've seen a scoreline that has been, something completely different. But then we go to Burnley and then Huddersfield. So, on paper, if you gave Liverpool that fixture list as they're going in for the title, they would have bitten your hand off for that. These are very winnable games and easy games, but it's our own mentality. And while the top 4 is still in our hands, it all really is going to depend on what Chelsea do tomorrow night, what they do next weekend, and where we are this time next Sunday, which will be before Chelsea play Manchester United. That will be a good kind of indicator to see where we are. We'll get a slight indication when we play Wolves on Wednesday night, and I'll rejoin you for that one. But I'm sort of just kind of frustrated that Arsenal can take you there and then take you there, and there's no transparency, there's no consistency. So we just have to kind of move on. We have to kind of regroup and go again and kind of go from there, really. But overall it's been a poor performance, and we're back to the seesaw and the pendulum swapping and changing yet the other way. I'm going to leave that nice and Arsenal there for you guys today. If you have enjoyed, please sure to leave a like on the video, subscribe to the channel if you're new around here, and check out my great content as well. Until next time, this is your Pepper signing out. Take care, and I shall see you all later. Take care, and I shall see you all very, very, very soon.